The clang of a wrench striking concrete echoed through the rusted walls of Eel's Auto and Mech, a garage tucked between decaying warehouses at the edge of East Halden. The air was thick with oil fumes, welding sparks, and the rhythmic buzz of an old radio playing soul classics from a forgotten era. This was no place for luxury or pride. This was where real machines came to be reborn, and where Danny Eel had learned to turn bolts before she could walk. Danny crouched beneath a gutted Skyhauler engine, her dark hands covered in grease up to the elbows, hair tied back beneath a weathered red bandana. At 26, she had already earned a reputation in underground circles as a miracle worker. But here, at the garage her father had built from nothing, she was just Danny Girl, the mechanic's daughter. Her father, Otis Eel, had been a legend in his own right. A quiet genius, never one for speeches or stage lights. He was a broad-shouldered man with deep laugh lines and a limp from a factory accident that he never talked about. He could diagnose a failing hover drive by sound alone and fix it with parts most shops wouldn't look twice at. He worked in silence, taught in riddles, and believed in letting the machine speak first. He never chased credit, and so the world forgot him. But Danny never did. She grew up between rusted frames and shattered gearboxes. Her lullabies were the hiss of air compressors and the snap of arc welders. School bored her. Teachers mistook her silence for shyness. But back at the shop, Danny came alive. She watched every movement Otis made, absorbing knowledge with the precision of a scanner, and the curiosity of a child who knew her mind was different. By age 11, she could dismantle and rebuild a dual-core hover generator. At 16, she upgraded the shop's diagnostic mainframe using repurposed parts from an old mining drone. Otis never called her gifted. He didn't believe in labels like that. Smart don't mean nothing without sweat, he'd say, handing her a socket wrench. You want to be great? Earn it. But behind his gruff tone, he looked at her like she was something rare, something he hadn't seen in anyone else. Then came the night everything changed. A fire tore through the west wing of the shop when a rogue capacitor exploded during a repair job. Danny was 17. She had saved her father's life that night, dragging his unconscious body through the smoke and shoving aside flaming scrap with raw strength and sheer will. But the explosion cost Otis his right arm, and with it, his ability to work like he once did. From that day forward, Danny ran the shop. Customers didn't trust her at first. She was young, black, female, and worse, she carried the air of someone who knew she was better than they expected. Most of the city's tech shops were run by big-name contractors or certified engineers with degrees framed on their pristine walls. Danny had none of that, but when their expensive technicians failed and their engines still refused to run, they came crawling back to Eel's, and Danny fixed them. Every time. Still, she remained a ghost to the upper world. Her name was whispered in street markets and late-night net forums, the grease boss, Otis's shadow, Black Lightning. But she wanted more than whispers. She wanted to prove that her mind, her hands, and her legacy deserved a place in the light. And somewhere deep down, she knew Otis wanted that for her too, even if he never said it. Late one evening, as the shop lights flickered and the last customer left, Otis sat in his old office chair, sipping bitter coffee with the tremble of age in his left hand. Danny walked in, wiping oil from her cheek. "You ever wonder what it'd be like," she asked, "if people like us were born somewhere else? Somewhere we didn't have to fight for every inch of respect?" Otis gave her a long look, then chuckled. "That ain't where greatness comes from. Diamonds don't grow in soft places." Danny smirked but didn't answer. Her gaze drifted to the photo on the wall, her as a baby, asleep in Otis's arms beside the shell of a hover truck he'd built from scrap. She stared at it for a long moment. That night, as the wind howled outside and the lights buzzed above her cot in the garage loft, Danny dreamed of machines that defied physics. She dreamed of circuits with souls. She dreamed of something impossible, an engine no one could fix. And when she woke, a strange email blinked on her cracked datapad. The rain poured like judgment over East Holden the next morning, the kind of relentless storm that turned broken streets into rivers and washed even the strongest oil from your skin. Danny Eel stood beneath the corrugated roof of the shop, arms folded, datapad still glowing in her hand. The message from Halcorp Industrial R&D didn't vanish overnight. Your name came highly recommended. Recommended? By who? She barely spoke. To anyone outside the regulars who limped in with failing grav cars and outdated solar coils. Halcorp was a behemoth, one of the last megacorporations still left after the global tech collapse. It owned fleets of AI-managed factories, funded quantum engine experiments, and held patents on half the working energy systems in the hemisphere. They didn't call mechanics like Danny. They called engineers in blindingly white coats with PhDs and ties tight enough to cut off brain flow. Yet here she was, still staring. She tapped to reply. Interested. Send specs. I don't travel blind. The response came instantly, encrypted and blinking with government clearance tags. Danny exhaled. Slowly, a planetary shield? Those were theoretical, part of a global defense initiative to prevent orbital debris storms or, according to darker corners of the web, shield key cities from coming climate collapse. Either way, only the highest echelons of tech elite touched those projects. The fact that they had reached out to her meant either they were desperate, or this wasn't what it seemed. But $1.2 million, she could rebuild her father's shop 3 times over. She could build a whole city of shops. She could hire real apprentices, start her own research facility, build machines not just for survival, but for progress. She looked over at Otis, who was welding a spare panel with one arm, his prosthetic lying unused on the workbench beside him. He hadn't even asked about the message, but he knew. He always knew. "You going?" he asked without turning. "I think I have to." Otis didn't answer. He just nodded, then added quietly, "You don't owe this world a damn thing, Danny. But maybe you owe it to yourself." 2 days later, Danny stood at a private airstrip outside Halden, wind cutting sharp against her cheeks. A matte black hovercraft sat waiting, rotors spinning in eerie silence. No insignia, no windows. Just a red triangle on the side, Halcorp's quiet symbol for level black. No questions asked. A tall man in a slate-gray coat greeted her at the edge of the platform. Pale skin, cropped white hair, one cybernetic eye that whirred faintly as it focused on her. "Miss Eel," he said, not offering a hand. "I'm Director Trask. You'll be under my authority until the job is complete. Your gear has been secured. No weapons, no AI, no communication devices permitted." "I work alone anyway," Danny replied. Trask nodded once. "We'll see." The journey to Mount Trenholm was faster than Danny expected. The craft flew at hypersonic speed over oceans and desert ranges, finally descending into a crater at the base of a frozen mountain. The landing pad was hidden beneath layers of reflective shielding, making the facility below invisible to satellites. Inside, the base was sleek and sterile. No dust. No oil. No chaos. The walls whispered as they walked, holographic. Screens fading in and out, cameras tracking every move. This place wasn't built by mechanics. It was built by control. Trask led her to a sealed chamber at the end of a long corridor. It was surrounded by reinforced glass and shielded wiring the width of tree trunks. Behind it, like the coiled muscle of some ancient machine god, sat the EVA engine. It wasn't just a motor, it was alive. A spherical core floated in midair, spinning slowly with deep blue pulses racing across its surface. Coils spiraled around it, magnetized and humming just beneath threshold. Power lines fed in from 4 walls, but nothing connected fully. Everything hovered in precision balance, barely touching, like planets in orbit. Danny's breath caught. She had never seen anything like it. "What exactly does it do?" she asked quietly. Trask looked at her. "It creates a controlled vortex, a stabilized breach that funnels quantum energy from alternate states of matter. In simpler terms, it produces limitless clean energy by tapping the space between dimensions. And it's broken?" Trask's cyber eye flickered. "Dead. No pulse, no heat, no error. Just nothing. As if it gave up on existing." Danny approached the glass, studying the architecture of the machine. The design was otherworldly, curved and elegant, not like anything humans had built before. It was intuitive, like it had been grown, not manufactured. "Who designed it?" she asked. There was a pause. Trask spoke flatly. "We don't know." That stopped her. "What?" "Do you mean?" "I mean it was found, half-built, at an abandoned facility in the Vargo wastes. No records, no plans. Our brightest tried finishing it. It powered up once, then stopped. Every attempt to restart it has failed." Danny turned slowly. "You brought me here. For a machine you didn't build? One you don't understand?" Trask's face was stone. "We brought you here because our experts failed. Whatever you are, Miss Eel, your mind isn't like theirs. You see systems differently. That's what we need. Fix it, and you walk away rich and free. Fail, and no one will. Remember you were here." He stepped back, hand resting on a hidden panel. "Good luck," he said, and with that, the door closed behind her, sealing with a hiss. Danny stood alone with the impossible. The engine pulsed once, almost like a heartbeat. She smiled. "All right, baby," she whispered. "Let's see what secrets you're hiding." Danny stood in the observation chamber, surrounded by cutting-edge equipment, blank stares, and the unspoken judgment of a team that didn't expect her. Not like this. She wore work boots, a sleeveless utility vest, her red bandana tight against. Her crown of coils, no lab coat, no badge, no letters behind her name. Just a rolling tool case and the kind of calm that rattled people used to chaos and status. The Halcorp team was waiting, 12 of them, gathered like an audience behind the glass wall that separated her from the EVA engine's containment chamber. Most wore augmented visors, and all of them had a look she knew too well. Suspicion wrapped in arrogance. Some were murmuring to each other, others just stared. She caught the scoff first. From a thin woman with steel-gray hair and piercing blue eyes. "You're kidding. That's the specialist? She doesn't even have clearance," someone else added. "Did you vet her?" came a deeper voice from the back, laced with venom. "This isn't a junkyard fusion core. This is black-tier R&D. Trask, standing to the side, didn't react. He just folded his arms, scanning the room with his one artificial eye. "She's the one you couldn't outthink, so maybe shut up and observe." Danny didn't flinch. She walked to the inner airlock as if she'd been there 100 times, swiped her clearance badge, temporary, laminated, slightly sticky, and stepped into the core chamber like it was her own garage. And then she ignored them all. She circled the EVA engine slowly, eyes taking in every micropulse, every faint shimmer across the surface of its levitating core. She let her fingers hover near the magnetic fields, gauging the charge. The engine was cold, but it was breathing. Dormant, not dead. And something deeper whispered to her from it. Not in words, but in sensation. This machine was never meant to be understood. It was meant to be felt. Behind the glass, murmurs shifted. Where's the diagnostic rig? She's not even scanning it. God, does she think it's art? Danny stepped back after 15 silent minutes and finally spoke. "She's not broken," she said, projecting her voice to the room beyond the glass. "She's waiting." Silence. A short, sharp laugh cut through it. The steel-haired woman stepped forward, face twisted in a smirk. "You think the engine is sentient now? Cute theory. Did you pick that up from your daddy's carburetor?" Danny's jaw tightened slightly. Not from offense, but from familiarity. The same tone teachers used. The same tone rival shop owners had thrown at her after she outfixed them in front of a customer. The tone of people who believed a brilliant black woman in grease-stained clothes couldn't possibly belong. She tilted her head. Nah, I picked it up from watching a dozen overpriced engineers miss what's right in front of their faces. That shut them up. A low voice spoke next. Calm, cool, powerful, enough. The group parted instinctively. A man walked in, tall, sculpted, skin the shade of brushed bronze, wearing a perfectly tailored black suit with a collar that shimmered faintly like woven graphene. No ID badge, no title, just presence. Danny knew, instinctively, this was the mysterious CEO, the kind of person who didn't sign memos. He wrote futures, Mr. Valen, Trask said with a subtle bow. So this was Julian Valen, the founder of HALCorp. Rumor had it he'd once worked on quantum systems for the Defense Council, but his files were sealed tight. Some believed he didn't age, or that he'd uploaded parts of his brain to stay ahead of his competition. Others said he wasn't fully human anymore. His eyes locked on Danny. Calculating. Curious. So you're the mechanic, he said. Danny met his gaze, unimpressed. I'm the fixer. Mechanics what they call people before they realize we're smarter than their engineers. A flicker of a smile ghosted across his face. Interesting. You'll have full access. Ignore the noise, he said, glancing toward the rest of the team. They don't understand the value of disruptive thinking. The steel-haired woman bristled. Sir, Dr. Nylan, Valen interrupted, his voice like a razor wrapped in silk. You've had the engine for 11 months. Your team has failed. Let someone else try. Dr. Nylan's mouth closed like a snapped valve. Danny turned back to the EVA core, already pushing the rest of them out of her mind. She felt Valen watching her even after he left. That night, she was shown to her quarters. Stark, cold, windowless. Single bed. A metal desk, a shower with harsh fluorescent lighting, no mirrors. They were keeping her contained, not like a guest, like a variable. She lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling, still feeling the whisper of the EVA engine humming. Behind her mind like a song she used to know. It was calling to her in a language not made of code or steel, but of intuition. Danny had fixed engines for years. She'd listened to them, heard their stories in the whir of a rotor or the flicker of unstable current. But this wasn't like anything else. It didn't want a technician. It wanted someone who understood secrets. Someone who carried one of her own. The next morning, the EVA lab was dead silent as Danny re-entered the core chamber. Cameras followed her every move. The observation deck above was filled again, this time with fewer words and more wary eyes. She didn't look up once. She didn't need to. The EVA engine floated in its containment cradle like a slumbering beast. Inert, but impossibly elegant. Coils of magnetized alloy spiraled around its spherical core, etched with strange grooves, organic, almost. The gaps between segments vibrated softly, a whisper in frequencies too low for anyone else to hear. But she heard them, not with her ears, with her bones. She began her diagnosis without scanners, no diagnostic drones, no overlays, no AI-assisted modeling. Just her senses, her touch. Manual interface, one technician whispered. Is she insane? Another muttered. She'll fry her nervous system, Dr. Nylan scoffed, arms crossed. This is what happens when you hire intuition instead of intellect. Danny knelt by the core. She extended her fingers toward the field that hovered around the EVA's outer surface. Heat rose against her palm, not mechanical warmth, but intentional warmth. She felt it shift with her breath, responding to her presence. Then she did something that made the entire lab freeze. She touched the engine. There was a pulse. Brief, blue-white, flickering through the lines in her fingertips and down her arm. The EVA engine responded. It knew her. She didn't pull away. She whispered, "You're scared, aren't you?" The machine purred in return. It wasn't broken. It was hiding. In the control room above, Director Trask leaned forward. "Pull telemetry now. Look at the field feedback." A young engineer's voice trembled. "It's recalibrating. The engine is adjusting polarity to her biosignature." "Impossible," Dr. Nyland snapped. "That thing hasn't reacted to anything in months." "It's reacting now," Trask muttered. Julian Valen appeared behind them, silent as ever, watching Danny as if she were unfolding a riddle only he'd suspected existed. Over the next 2 hours, Danny tore into the EVA's heart. Not physically, mentally, she paced. She touched different nodes. She hummed softly, her rhythm syncing with the system's low hums. She adjusted not wires but resonance fields. She moved holograms around without looking at them, tuning not what the engine did, but why it refused to act. "See," she muttered. "They tried to command you, control you. But you don't like control. You want cooperation." She reached for a panel hidden beneath the EVA's base. The team had tried opening it before. Every magnetic lock, every override failed. Danny pressed her palm against it. The panel opened. A gasp rippled through the lab above. She accessed the locked systems. Someone whispered, How did she know that was there?" Inside was not a mess of wires or fuses. It was a smooth, prismatic crystal embedded in a mesh of almost living alloy. Not human tech. Not entirely. Danny stared at it, then slowly traced her fingers along the edge. "She's not man-made," she said out loud. Julian Valen's voice came through the intercom for the first time. "What do you mean?" "I mean the EVA engine. It's not from here," Danny said softly. "The design's hybrid. Some parts use human principles, but the core? That's alien." The silence that followed was thick and terrified. Trask stared at the readouts. Nyland's face had gone pale. "You're guessing," she snapped. "No records support that." "No records at all support any of this," Danny replied. "You didn't build this. You finished something you didn't understand." That night, Danny sat alone again in her quarters, her fingers still tingling. The EVA engine had let her in. She could feel it now, even when she wasn't in the lab. It had tasted her presence and found something familiar, something deep, something Danny hadn't told anyone. Because Danny Eel had a secret of her own. The day she saved her father from the fire, the day the capacitor exploded. Something inside her had changed. She had felt time slow down, had seen the energy field of the shop like a glowing map in her head. She never told Otis. She never told anyone. She thought maybe it was adrenaline, trauma, a fluke. But now she knew better. Whatever. The EVA engine it had recognized her for what she truly was. Not just a mechanic, not just a genius, but a key. The hiss of the containment door faded behind her. The hum of the EVA engine still pulsed in her fingertips like an echo she couldn't silence. But Danny wasn't in the lab anymore. She was 12 again, knees scuffed, hands black with soot, crouched. Under the rusted frame of a hydrogen van in the back alley of Eel's Auto and Mod, the sound of a power spanner clicked overhead, rhythmically, like a metronome. Then came her father's voice, low, steady, wrapped in equal parts kindness and gravel. "It ain't just about parts, Danny. It's about what they want to be." Danny squinted up from beneath the axle. "Parts don't want anything, Papa," he chuckled once. "That's what your books say, but your hands know better. Listen close, you'll hear it." She had rolled her eyes then, the way kids did when their parents got weird or wise. But the thing was, she had heard it, a kind of rhythm in broken things, a whisper in metal. Machines told her what was wrong, what they needed, what they were scared of. Not in words, but in patterns. Her father, Jamal Eel, had known something most mechanics didn't. Machines carried memory, not digital logs, not firmware records, emotional memory. Friction on a gear that came from fear. A surge. Capacitor burned out not from overuse but panic. He treated his engines like patients, not problems. And Danny absorbed it like oxygen. Later, as she grew, she began modifying his designs in secret. Her mind worked faster than his. It wasn't pride, it was truth. She saw things he didn't. Not just what was, but what could be. She enhanced a broken Solar Bike's microgrid using a feedback loop she'd only dreamed about. It doubled the output. Her father never knew why it suddenly worked so well. At 15, she rewired the old servo arm they used for lifting engines, gave it self-balancing torque. It stopped jerking and started responding like a sixth sense. Papa watched her from the doorway sometimes, silently. He never interrupted, just let her work. Until one night, he finally said something. "You're different, baby girl. Different like the sky before a storm." She turned to him, grease on her cheek, holding a half-rebuilt fusion drive she'd modified with conductive bone filament. "Different bad?" He shook his head. "No, just... you see what others can't. That makes you dangerous to people who need the world to stay small." Now, in the stillness of her Halcorp bunk, Danny sat cross-legged on the cold metal floor, remembering that night vividly. That difference, that strange way her mind wrapped around things that shouldn't make sense, had always been there. Her teachers called it intuition. She knew better. It was legacy. It was inheritance. But it wasn't just from her father. It was something older. She opened her toolbox and reached beneath the false bottom. She'd smuggled in an object no one at Halcorp had seen. A curved medallion of etched copper, no bigger than her palm. Its center pulsed with faint indigo light. She'd found it when she was 13, buried inside the wreckage of a crashed drone near Halden's Edge. It was alien, she knew that instinctively. No ports, no energy signature readable by Earth tools, but when she touched it, it woke up. She'd hidden it for 12 years, kept it close like a charm, or a warning. Now, as she held it near her heart, it began to glow brighter, synchronized with the exact frequency of the EVA engine. Danny whispered aloud, "You've seen this before, haven't you?" The medallion vibrated faintly in her hand. She wasn't fixing a machine. She was unlocking a message, one sent long before she was born, and the truth was finally rising. The EVA engine had begun to respond, slowly, cautiously, but unmistakably. Diagnostic readings now pulsed with low-level activity. The magnetic lattice was no longer frozen. It rippled, like a heartbeat stirring from slumber. Danny's touch had awakened something, and someone didn't like that. She was alone in the chamber. After hours, as usual. Trask had given her full access now, though the rest of the staff still watched her like she was a ghost wearing oil stains. Most didn't speak. Some didn't even hide their contempt. As she crouched near the EVA's core to recalibrate a field stabilizer, the lights flickered. Once, twice, then stabilized. Odd. The power here was triple redundant. Halcorp didn't do brownouts. Danny's eyes narrowed. She opened the diagnostics panel and checked the backup grid logs. There it was, a microspike. Just 6 seconds earlier. Someone had rerouted energy flow around the EVA engine's internal stabilizer, just enough to cause a silent destabilization. Subtle, perfectly masked, but if it had continued, the engine might have imploded. She stepped back slowly. Someone had just tried to sabotage her. She stayed silent about the incident until morning, combing the security feeds herself from her portable deck. Her clearance was low, but Danny knew back doors. She bypassed 2 layers of Halcorp's surveillance firewall and finally found what she needed, a shadow, short, compact, moving with practiced confidence. No face, but a heat signature she could isolate. More importantly, the person used local clearance to get inside. It was an insider. She confronted Trask first. He didn't flinch. "Sabotage," he said, brows furrowing. "We scan all systems. You scan the public ones," Danny interrupted. Whoever did this knew enough to reroute through level 2 cooling feeds. And they used Halcorp clearance. He went silent, his synthetic eye whirring as it refocused. "You sure?" She slid her deck across the table. "See for yourself." Trask studied the footage. "This is a ghost. They used adaptive masking. Could be anyone." "No," she said. "Could be someone you already trust." By midday, Danny had a suspect, a young systems engineer named Clem Marrow, clean record, too clean. Always around when data anomalies occurred. Conveniently absent. During last night's maintenance window, a Halcorp lifer from the Andros branch, reassigned 2 months ago with 0 public project history. Danny watched him from the observation deck as he typed, pretending to run simulations. He looked bored, comfortable, too comfortable. So she tested a theory. That night, she laid a trap. She sent a false diagnostic flag from the EVA core, an overload warning, but only on the internal coolant loop. To anyone monitoring EVA's vitals in secret, it would look like a perfect sabotage opportunity. Then she waited. 3 hours later, at 02:12 a.m., the containment hallway lights flickered. The shadow returned. Same height, same gate, same route. But this time, Danny was waiting inside. As the figure stepped into the core room, they froze. Danny flipped on the emergency halogens. The light burst down like judgment. Clem stood, mouth slightly open, hand inside a tool satchel. "Hello, traitor," she said. He bolted, but Danny was ready. She didn't chase him. She hit the emergency lockdown on her panel, an override she'd quietly reprogrammed earlier in the week. Steel shutters slammed down. Clem was trapped. In the aftermath, security dragged him away. Trask interrogated him personally. Valen didn't appear, but Danny knew he was watching, somewhere behind mirrored glass. Clem cracked under pressure, not because he was scared, but because he didn't care anymore. They were never going to share the tech, he spat. "You think Halcorp's going to save the world, please? They'll patent the EVA engine and sell it to the highest bidder. My employer made me an offer to make sure it never worked." "Who's your employer?" Trask growled. Clem smiled. "RX Systems, the ones Halcorp stole the engine from in the first place." Danny's blood ran cold. RX Systems. She'd heard of them. No one admitted it, but whispers ran through black market forums and deep tech nets. RX bought brilliance and buried it. They were the quiet ghost of innovation, silencing rivals, patent-blocking discoveries, buying governments. And apparently, the EVA engine was never theirs to begin with. It had been found, recovered, hidden, and both corporations were fighting over it behind the curtain. Danny sat alone again that night, staring at the medallion in her hand. The pieces were falling into place. The engine wasn't just alien, it was a message, and these corporations, they were trying to erase it before anyone could read it.